What is this? The truth about unwanted arousal. What? Unwanted arousal? I thought arousal is amazing. Right? You type in define bash, right? And what? Well, who knew the bash is bashing? And it's bashing, bashing, bashing. And now, wow, comes up with it. Wow. The action or fact of arousing or being aroused. Right. Bash nothing. Oh, define free dictionary. Well, let's go to the bash worship of this bash. Would you say, well, this, that. So apparently it's arousal and then sexual arousal. Oh, let's take a look at both. Arousal, the psychological and the physiological and psychological state of being awoken or of sense organs stimulated to a point of perception. So just tickling. It involves activation of the ascending reticular activating system, arousal, arousmataz, this and that and this and abracadabra, wow, in the brain, which mediates wakefulness. So is it your third bash eye? The autonomic nervous system and the endocrine system, leading to increased heart rate and blood pressure and a condition of sensory alertness, mobility, and readiness to respond. Arousal. Is it the flight or fight? Oh, flight or flight. Yes, evolution. Hooray. Arousal is mediated by several different neural systems, just several. It's just a hub of where several systems come in and somehow smash. Wakefulness is regulated by Araz, arousmataz, which is composed of projections from 5 major neurotransmitter systems that originate in the brainstem. So the family tree, that is the tree of life, everyone. Your brainstem, it just originates all, and then shapeshifts into other bashes that do other things. Apparently, wow. And form connections extending throughout the cortex. Activity within the Araz is regulated by neurons that release the neurotransmitters acetylcholine, oh, norepinephrine, dopamine, histamine, and serotonin. Who knew? Activation of these neurons produces an increase in cortical activity and subsequently alertness. Oh, so we're all just in a relentless state of arousal, everyone. Alertness to what the Bosch counterfeit image is and leading you in. Wow. Arousal is important in regulating consciousness, attention, alertness, and information processing. Wow, they're telling you right there. Arousal is how we bash you. Through arousal, through the hub of the systems of the thing that original is in the brainstem, we just bash you. Wow, it is crucial for motivating certain behaviors. Wow, exactly. All the relentless motivation coaches and this. Wow. Such as mobility, the pursuit of nutrition, the fight or flight response, and sexual activity. Right? The arousal phase of Masters of Johnson's human sexual response cycle. It also important in emotion and has been included in such theories as James Lawrence theory of emotion. Amazing. Why don't they mention Freud in there? Just bash all of them in there. Just mention all of them. According to Hans Eisneck, Differences in baseline arousal levels lead people to be extroverts or introverts. Wow, so depending on your arousal type is determines whether you're an extrovert or introvert. Wow, what bash. Of course, they couldn't wait to just smash and categorize and name and relentlessly label and date and say, this guy did it and we worship him and we base other bash on him and then other bashes just replace him. And it's just amazing. The Yerkes-Dodson law states that an optimal level of arousal for performance exists. So just enough, but not enough of this and this. And too little or too much arousal can adversely affect task performance. Who knew? So who knew that sex is just used against you in a court of law? Who knew? Sex and all the arousal states of your just rubbernecking to what appears as pleasing to you in your image worship of beauty and your image worship of falsehoods and your bashhoods of self-betterment, self-beautification. The relentless permaculture that's just gonna snap his way into the earth and just fertilize it relentlessly and just overcome somehow the destruction of man somehow. Because peak oil is just peak oil, everyone. Get out of the Titanic while you can. It's a sinking ship. Come and relentless permaculturalize with me, and it will be okay. What bash? What bash? Because anything that goes along with this bash, this worship, the colors and the states and the levels and the onion in the onion and this and that. Wow, smashed. Smasheth. All because you want to be the regulator of arousal. You want to be the one who just pressure gauges it and just enough, but not too much or too little. Because it'll just kind of mash us up. What is going on? So they tell you how it all works and bashes in your skull, and somehow it's just bashing you, and that's the EEG and the cord, brainstem, and the basal artery, and the medulla, and all of them. Look, they're just layers of onions and onions within the onions, and somehow they all came from one bash half ape that somehow just bashed from a mouse. And of course, through the swamp that just slithered onto land. Amazing. Amazing. And all the acetylcholines and neuropinephrines and dopamines of the histamines of those multiplexes of verses just smashes that know what to do somehow. It just evolved just perfectly, just smashing right to somehow awake you, somehow to give you arousal. Somehow it was preferable and just favorable in fitness. And somehow it was just so amazing that they knew that they just had enough and not too much and not too little. Otherwise, we'll be extinct. What is going on? What is going on? Who knows? But somehow it's very important. Importance. Arousal is important in regulating consciousness, attention, and information processing. Right? Your ability to filter. What are you filtering? Exactly, you have no idea. You think, well, I'm just filtering the water and the pureness of the ionized, and I'm totally alkaline, and I'm just cancer free, and this and that. That's what you think. That's what you think you're filtering. You're just some toxins from the body. What a shame. Denial, in the complete denial of life. All while abusing life and saying how pure you are and how just cleanly you are and just how virtuous you sound and just how enlightened and such an empath and how much you care about everyone else and this and that and this. Wow. Boaster. Just swimming around in the complacency of it that defileth. Bring her in of Groundhog Day, day in, day out. All while Yes, dishing out false promise, the one that you relentlessly meander down into nowhere, just you're drowning. What is all this? Look, there's a relationship between arousal and task performance, essentially arguing that there is an optimal level of arousal for performance, and too little or too much arousal can adversely affect again. One interpretation of Bosch law is the Eastbrook Q utilization theory. It predicted that high levels of arousal will lead to attention narrowing. So, is arousal now stress? Well, you just gotta put the pressure thumb down on man, and somehow he just gets better. But then if you smash him too much, he just narrows and withers and dies. So somehow just put enough pressure so that he feels a little awake, and then smash him at that level. What is going on? Right? Stimulus. Oh, and the environment decreases. Well, oh, during which the range of cues from the stimulus and the environment decreases. So now he's just narrow, just bashed. Has the blinders like a horse. Just put your head down and just walk. According to this hypothesis, attention will be focused primarily on the arousal detail cues of the stimulus, so that information central to the source of emotional arousal will be encoded while peripheral details will not. Yeah, that's exactly the state you're in, everyone is in. Just, bash, my life, my image, bash, that's it. Solipsism, this and that, you are, therefore I am, and all this bash. Wow, amazing. In positive psychology, arousal is described as response to a difficult challenge for which the subject has moderate skills. Well, so they feel arousal when they're presented with a difficult challenge for which they have moderate skills. That's amazing. The positive thinker. He'll get through it all no matter what, because he has moderate skills for everything. And any difficult challenge, he'll just splash. That's being positive psychology. Personality, wow, of course, introversion and extroversion. Wow, depending on your past arousal states, who cares? And emotional stability versus introversion, extrovert. Four types, personality types. Who knew? Emotion, the cannon bar theory. Yes, give it all to me. Memory, arousal is involved in detection, retention, and retrieval of information. Who knew? Arousal. So that's why that's why it all has to do with the arousal state, right? And they distinguish it from sexual arousal, right? So interesting. Wow. Not to be mistaken for arousal, right? Turn on, da da da. Sexual arousal is arousal of sexual desire. So in arousal, you're awoken, right, to what? What do you see? What do you filter? In a state of being aware, conscious, what? Stimulated by what? Just your being. Just a little being that you just friction, and just wow, it just kind of just splashes. And sexual desire, of course, just desire. During or in anticipation of sexual activity, a number of psychological responses occur in the body and mind as preparation for sexual intercourse and continue during it. Male arousal will lead to an erection, and in female arousal, the body's response is engorged sexual tissues such as nipples, vulva, clitoris, vaginal walls, and vaginal lubrication. Right? Mental stimuli and physical stimuli such as touch and the internal fluctuation of hormones can influence sexual arousal. So your focus to your blind, your focus to the sexual of desire. So arousal is key to performance. So now you're sexually performing. So now you're aroused and the lust or whatever it is, and you engage. But what is it? You don't know. Somehow just responds to that. Like, oh, look at all the vulvas and look at all the nipples. Wow, the vaginal walls. And look at the vaginal lubrication. Wow, and amazing. Sexual arousal has never staged and may not lead to any actual sexual activity beyond a mental arousal, right? So what if arousal is supposed to be performance, in effect performance or whatever bash, but it means what is it? The narrow filter of the image that you see. So what images do you see? What image do you see? And what state of arousal are you in? Relentlessly. Meaning you're conscious of filtering perception and ultimate behavior from it. So what are you doing? I don't know. I don't know. I'm just. Man is just an ape, so he relentlessly wants arousal. Don't you know? Wow, what a shame. No, right? Because this says it's just a state of psychological being awoken or sense of you feel yourself, right? You perceive yourself as wow aroused. You're arousal. So again, what is the truth of unwanted arousal?
My specialty as a sex educator is I bring the science. But my first and most important job is that I stay neutral when I talk about anything sex related. No embarrassment,
Oh, I stay neutral. Ha.
no titillation, no judgment, no shame, no matter where I am, no matter what question you ask me. There's at the end of a conference in a hotel lobby once, I'm literally on my way out the door and a colleague chases me down. Emily, I just have a really quick question. A friend of mine wants to know if it's possible to get addicted to her vibrator.
Oh, is it? Wow. It's just Albert Einstein just refurbished and represented you. Look, of course it. Look, it's a little wizard genius that's just smashing out there and just knows so much, and it even has the matching hair. Except Einstein was the Gandalf the white, and this is just Gandalf the Blackbeard or whatever.
The answer is no, but it is possible to get spoiled. A different conference, this one in an outdoor tropical paradise. I'm at the...
So no, you can't get addicted to vibrators or sex robots or just sex. No, you just somehow are obsessed.
breakfast buffet, and a couple approaches me. Hi, Emily, we're sorry to interrupt you, but
You're
we
spoiled.
just wanted to ask a quick question about premature ejaculation. Sure, let me tell you about the stop-start technique. That is my life.
Oh, that is my life. People just come up to me and ask me sexual questions, and I give them relentless advice of how to rub that bean. So what is this person? Of course, follower of Kinsey and entourage, and who gives a bash, right? But wow, all this liberation, just open talk. Just, what are they gonna say? Just open dialogue is the best protection against unwanted arousal.
Stay neutral when other people might squick. Squick is an emotion that combines surprise with embarrassment, plus some
Squick.
disgust and like not knowing what to do with your hands.
Squick.
So
that's trauma based, right? So who knew that, for example, somebody who was abused as a child and all of a sudden people around them talking about abuse, wow, that's how they react. But you say, oh no, it's just people that have questions about sex, right? And this and that, they're the ones that feel like that. What is going on? What is going on?
it's a product. The reason you
Trauma.
experience it is because you spent the first 2 decades of your life learning that sex is a dangerous and disgusting source of everlasting shame, and if you're not really good at it, no one will ever love you.
So it's disgusting, and if you're not good at it, everybody will hate you. So it's disgusting, but everybody just loves it. But if you're not good at it, it will hate you. What? Who? Who? Oh no! Because who knew that you believe that? Because everybody's bashed, right? They're relentlessly trying to justify their animal worship. They worship the flesh, the pleasures. Do as thou wilt, just as the animal does. But apparently, you have a higher supposed consciousness, right? State of arousal. So you kind of just bash yourself into just believing that you know there's nothing, there's no purpose in life. No, we're just bashed and we just have relentless onions of brain power and this and this. And somehow we're just bashed and finally get into a level where we can just openly talk about how we can just friction each other without shame and this and this and that and this and this. What are they talking about? No, mechanisms of how to bash you. That's what they're talking about.
So you might squick, hearing me talk about sex while you're sitting in a room full of strangers. That is normal. I invite you to breathe. Feelings are tunnels. We make our way through the darkness to get to the light at the end. And I promise it's worth it because I want to share with you today.
See, she's gonna take you through the darkness and then the light at the end. Wow.
A piece of science that has changed how I think about everything from the behavior of neurotransmitters in our emotional brain to the dynamics of our interpersonal relationships to our judicial system. And it starts with our brain. There's an area of your brain you've probably heard referred to as the reward center, I think.
Oh, of course it couldn't. It had to come back to the brain, right? Because it's the worship of the hash bash ape theory. So through the brain now, your bash, the mash of the brain somehow is now the missing link to everything. To everything that we look around and say, well, yeah, there's people that just abuse, but that's just part of evolution. So we just have to just say, guys, we had it wrong. Punishment isn't the way to go. It's just embrace. Embrace for all ways are allowed under the sun, and they're all equal. All ways. Just allow everything to happen no matter what. Stay in your relative truth. Stay in your relative worship. And we're all just going to hold hands and jump off the cliff. It's okay. I got you, bud.
Calling it the reward center is a little bit like calling your face your nose. That is one prominent feature, but it ignores some other parts and will leave you really confused if you're trying to understand how faces work. It's actually three intertwined but separable systems. The first system is liking, which is like reward. So this is the opioid hotspots in your emotional brain. It assesses hedonic impact. Does this stimulus feel good? How good? Does this stimulus feel bad? How bad? If you drop sugar water on the tongue of a newborn infant, the opioid liking system sets off fireworks. And then there's the wanting system. Wanting is mediated by.
So who do they know all this stuff? How to manipulate? And you say, well, of course, it's science. How do you think we've gone up to such advances in such technology, bud? Simple by engineering. Practical solutions for some bash physical reality. But the other aspect of what you call science is how to just bash you. Bash your image. Bash the image that you believe yourself to be in and engaging with. Right? So this person is selling you some bash notion of this science changes everything. Bash, it has to do with the brain. So now through the brain, the brain it's like the mind, describing the mind. And so you can say, well, we just bash and just lobotomize this part of the brain, and this happens, and this, and stimuli, light. We see light in here, the EEG. Wow, we know everything, the receptor, and this chemical, and the coke. The coke is just like giving the child coke, and wow, we know it's addictive, so we just blast it with more, and we know how to just keep them in the balanced state of arousal. What a shame.
By this vast dopaminergic network in and beyond the emotional brain. It motivates us to move toward or away from a stimulus. Wanting is more like your toddler following you around asking for another cookie. So wanting and liking are related.
Oh, so she's just describing, taunting a horse with a carrot dangling over it with a stick, and you're riding it, and so it's just gonna keep walking forward, never gonna reach it because it's just dangling and far You're the manipulator, right? For the state of arousal, right, implies identity. It implies performance. It implies exactly what you receive from it. The stimulus you receive from it. So who knew the stimulus of being in a bash relationship with a psycho girlfriend or this or that or psycho boyfriend or whatever, just a narcissist, just right? It's just like, wow, you put up with the abuse just for the false promise, right, of intimacy or this or that, or some bash thing you could come to say, well, yeah, you're trying to explain or this or that, and trying to be right. Well, why can't you see you're this? Wow, what's going on? What? It's my fault. Yes, okay, it's all my fault. I have to change. I have to just change for you. And she's like, well, okay, well, you would have changed if you really loved me. And all these bash things and bash, bash, bash. And all this bash, bash, bash. And it's just relentless. Right? So did that happen to this person? Who knows? But it happens relentlessly. And who knew that's why relationships just fail and they just want to smash and polyamory this and polyamory that. Wow, and it's just so amazing. Just flick my bean and flick your bean and let me watch. Amazing.
They are not identical. And the third system is learning. Learning is Pavlov's dogs. You remember Pavlov? He makes dogs salivate in response to a bell. It's easy. You give a dog food, salivates automatically, and you ring a bell. Food, salivate, bell. Food,
wow, salivate, bell. Food, salivate, bell. Food, salivate, bell.
Bell, salivate. Bell, salivate. Does that salivation mean that the dog wants to eat the bell? Does it mean that the dog finds the bell delicious? No. What Pavlov did was make the bell food related. When we see this separateness of wanting, liking, and learning, this is where we find an explanatory framework for understanding what
exactly, she's telling you. So just because there's an associated sound to the bone and the whatever this, now you hear the bell and now you're in that state of arousal. Who knew? It's just brainwash. She's describing how brainwashing works. Yet now you're just bashing. You're like, so we're just all free thinkers? Yes, because that's what you've been bashed into believe when you're actually just taunted.
Researchers call arousal non-concordance. Non-concordance, very simply, is when there is a lack of predictive relationship between your physiological response, like salivation, and your subjective experience of pleasure and desire.
Right, so it's like if your desire doesn't match with how wet you are, you're doing something wrong. Right?
And it happens in every emotional and motivational system that we have, including sex. Research over the last 30 years has found that genital blood flow can increase in response to sex-related stimuli, even if those sex-related stimuli are not also associated with the subjective experience of wanting and liking. In fact, the predictive relationship between genital response and subjective experience is between 10 and 50%, which is an enormous range. You just can't predict necessarily how a person feels about that sex-related stimulus just by looking at their genital blood flow. When I explained this to my husband...
Wow, who knew? Who knew? It's like just because it's flowing doesn't mean I'm aroused. What's going on?
He gave me the best possible example. He was like, so that could explain this one time when I was in high school. I got an erection in response to the phrase donut hole. Did he want to have sex with a donut? No. He was a teenage boy flooded with testosterone, which makes it...
Right. And just the idea of a hole and stuffing it made him aroused because that's what he's presented with. In porn titles and this and that and this and jokes and blah, 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 smashed.
Everything a little bit sex-related, and it can go in both directions. A person with a penis may struggle to get an erection one evening and then wake up the very next morning with an erection when it's nothing but a hassle. I got a phone call from a 30-something friend, a woman. She said,
"Oh, so that means nothing."
So my partner and I were in the middle of doing some things, and I was like, "I want you right now," and he said, "No, you're still dry. You're just being nice." And I was so petty. So what's the matter? Is it hormonal? Should I talk to a doctor? What's going on? Answer? It's arousal non-concordance. If you're experiencing unwanted pain, talk to a medical
Arousal non-concordance.
provider. Otherwise, arousal non-concordance, your genital behavior just doesn't necessarily predict your subjective experience of liking and wanting. Another friend back in college told me about...
So does that explain the relentless rubbernecking and relentless thinking that the grass is greener, right? The best for me, the best. I deserve the best because I am the best. No, everyone's a hypocrite. Who knew? So what's going on? All we can come to know is the word of God. For the word of other men is just filled with bash, things that will convince you to stay in the bashhood. No, stay with me. Psst, come here, man. Have another. Psst, come here. Don't you remember how great it was the last time? This, that, the other. We're just so great together. We're just so great together. Why would you ruin something that's good? Let's just keep going. How this, that, smashed.
About her first experiences of power play in a sexual relationship. She told me that her partner tied her up with her arms above her head like this. She's standing up and he positions her so she's straddling a bar, presses up against her clitoris like this. So there's my friend standing there and the guy leaves. It's power play. Leaves her alone. So there's my friend and she goes, "I'm bored." And the guy comes back and she says, I am bored. And he looks at her and he looks at the bar and he says, then why are you wet? Why was she wet?
Because she was being frictioned. She's like, well, yeah, because his body will just respond, just physiological, but then the mind isn't there, so somehow it's not complete. What are they saying? Shouldn't this be just a justification for casual sex? It's like, yeah, that means that you can have sex with people and not have it mean anything. So that's true to what people go out. They're like, I'm not looking for anything serious, but let's smash. So what is she saying? Who knows? But it's awfully just wordsmithing ish. Of course it is. Because it's all science.
Is it sex related to have pressure directly against your clitoris? Yeah. Does that tell him whether she wants or likes what's happening?
No. Oh, she's like, that's how you know. It doesn't matter if the woman is wet, gushing out, ready for penetration. It means no. Is that what she's going to say?
Nope. What does tell him whether she wants or likes what's happening? She does. She recognized and articulated what she wanted and liked. All he had to do was listen to her words. My friend on the phone. What's the solution? You tell your partner, listen to your words. Also buy some lube.
Buy some lube, because she can say, I want it. I want you inside of me. And the guy's like, yeah, but you're not wet. It's going to hurt you and me. He says, no, give it to me anyway. And the guy's like, well, squirt the lube. All right, let's do it. So what's going on? Could it be that just the arousal is a bash imagery, of image worship of what it is that you think that you want based on your bash desire? Because that's what you've been taught to do with your apparent awareness, your conscious, arousal, your awoken state of being, and this and that and this. But somehow you associate your awoken state of being just to look down and friction that being relentlessly. Whoa!
Applause for lube. Absolutely. Everyone, everywhere.
Applause for lube.
But I want to tell you a darker, listen to her word story. This one comes from a note that a student sent me after I gave a lecture about arousal non-concordance. She told me that she was with a partner, a new partner, glad to be doing things, and they reached a point where that was as far as she was interested in going, and so she said no. And the partner said, no, you're wet, you're so ready. Don't be shy. Shy. As if it hadn't taken all the courage and confidence she had to say no to someone she liked, whose feelings she did not want to hurt. But she said it again. She said no. Did he listen to her words? In the age of Me Too and Time's Up, people ask me, how do I even know what my partner wants and likes? Does all consent have to be verbal and contractual now? There are times when consent is ambiguous, and we need a large-scale cultural conversation about that. But can we make sure we're noticing how clear consent is if we eliminate this myth? In every example I've described so far, one partner recognized and articulated what they wanted and liked. I want you right now. No. And their partner told them they were wrong. It's gaslighting, profound and degrading.
Oh, it's profound and degrading. Not the worship of just flicking your beam relentlessly and just self-serving. No, that is right. But it's just the person's fault for just not being verbal enough. So that's why we need a revolution of wordsmithing so that we can come up with the correct terminology and codes of ethic to just smash even better. What is this person saying? What are they saying? Slithering sweet nothings into you.
You say you feel one way, but your body proves that you feel something else. And we only do this around sexuality because arousal non-concordance happens with every emotional and motivational system we have. If my mouth waters when I bite into a wormy apple, does anybody say to me, you said no, but your body said yes? And it's not only our partners who get it wrong.
Right. So cognitive dissonance and this and that, bash, right? Oh, emotional non-concordance or what? Bash, arousal non-concordance, bash. So basically just contradiction, right? In yourself, splitteth, right? And you're like, no, I'm just so whole. I'm so enlightened. I'm just the balance. I'm the synthesis. And guys, we just need a reform. We just need a reform with our bash new enlightened ways of just going out there and just desire rocketing, even if we don't want it, but we're just gonna push through it and just get the rewards of the relentless coasting couch. Because yeah, we'll just fit in and just boast of how we're shape shifting in it and for you and you in it with us. Who knew?
The National Judicial Education Program published a document called Judges Tell: What I Wish I Had Known Before I Presided in a Case of an Adult Victim of Sexual Assault. Number 13, on occasion, the victim, female or male, may experience a physical response, but this is not a sexual response in the sense of desire or mutuality. This brings me one step closer into the darkness, and then I promise we will find our way into the light. I'm thinking of a recent court case involving multiple instances of non-consensual sexual contact. Imagine you're on the jury, and you learn that the victim had orgasms. Does it change how your gut responds to the case? Let me remind you, orgasm is physiological. It is the spontaneous, involuntary release of tension generated in response to sex-related stimuli.
Oh, so that's an orgasm. Yeah, that's the rest. You just scientifically wordsmith you to say, it just means nothing. It's just like that example I gave about the woman being tied up with a vibrator, just riding it. She was wet and just gushing, but she was bored. And this and that and this and this and that and this and this and that. What is going on? And you say, well, just you can escape if you're being abused, right? And you go into fantasy land and you just to bear with the past trauma, and you might orgasm. What's going on? So everybody's out there receiving some reward in their life arousal. The relentlessly, feeling excited and orgasmic at some points, but they really don't want that. They're unfulfilled, just bashed, just, disjointed, cut at the knee, swiped, your ACL's blown out, and this and that. Your Achilles heel is just blasted, and now you have a wound in your bashed skull, and you're just defiled and bleeding out. But no, somehow you're still, somehow I'm just in control. I'm so self-empowered and self-controlled, and I'm bashing through bashhood, but it doesn't matter because at least I can say no to my partner and make them feel ashamed for just violating that trust and this and that. All the while, it's okay to just relentlessly dash and dine and smash and dash and pump and dump and all these bash things, but somehow it's called free love and free liberation of just frick that being and nobody's business, right? Just shut your mouth and let us be. Just shut your mouth and do as I will and let us just boast in it.
But the perpetrator's lawyer made sure the jury knew about those orgasms because he thought the orgasms could be construed as consent. I will also add that this was a child being abused by an adult in the family. I invite you to breathe.
Oh, couldn't wait. She's like, oh, and I just smashed it with the darkness, and now breathe. Breathe the swarm and just release it. Wow, amazing. What? This and this and that and that. So now she's the coach, she's a spiritual leader, and now she's so enlightened, guiding you through a breathe meditation. Amazing. Where can I buy the DVD to your series of enlightenment? Who knew? So this person is saying, wow, it was being done to a child, and the child orgasmed. This and that and this and this and wow, right? Who knew? Who knew? Because that's hand in hand with the worship of the light. Do as thou wilt, manipulate, create as thou wilt, shapeshift, and teach the art of shapeshifting. Because who knew that through trauma, through the unconsented abuse of children, is how you create a bash nation of bashhood. To where they do it to themselves and they're out there smashing and all types of relation and just sexual depravity, and they just can't figure out why they're just bashed. But then they found that one person, and but then they still rubberneck and this and that, and just always self-bettering and this and that, and somehow we just grew apart. You no longer fit my needs. Smashed.
That kind of story can give a person all kinds of feelings, from rage to shame to confused arousal, because it is sex-related, even though it is appalling. But even though I know it's difficult to sit with those feelings in a room full of strangers, if we can find our way through all of the messy feelings, I believe we will.
So if she just used an example, right, that she worships. So she worships this sexology, right, the study of bash, whatever, anthropology, and all the ologies of the bash, namely of how to frick that being and just flick it into the oblivion, right? And she probably loves Kinsey and all his work and collaborators and this and that. And now she's just boasting it. She's like, but, oh, this was done to a child. Wow, and somehow that's shocking. No. Who knew that this worship is possible because of the abuse of children? Who now boast and promote it relentlessly. Somehow boasting on how virtuous it is. To just bring it out in the open and say, guys, listen, it's just mashed, okay? We're out there having fun, but listen, there are rules to the game. Just listen. Just listen to your partner and this and that and this and that and that and this, because it's just an exchange. It doesn't mean anything. So just listen to them because they might not want it, or they'll just not be into it. But you just gotta listen, right? This and that and this and that. And the guy's like, oh, or the woman's like, well, all while just boasting in their desire and just arousal of you name it. At this point, it's just all dark because she's gonna mislead
Find
you
our
into
way
the light.
to the light of compassion for that child whose relationship with their body was
Is she wearing a glove? A half glove? What's a wow, a wrist warmer? Oh, it's just so fashionable. It's just a wrist warmer. And look, she's so enlightened. Wow. Compassion.
damaged by an adult whose job it was to protect it.
Right. That's your talk should have just said that. Unwanted arousal, yes. Adults who are bashing our children and just smashing and creating bash versions of themselves are go out there and just completely bash worship and the escapism, relentlessly do as thou wilt, and try to shapeshift their way out of the sufferings of the ways of the world.
And we'll find hope that there was a trustworthy adult who could say genital response just means it was a sex-related stimulus, doesn't mean it was wanted or liked, certainly doesn't mean it was consented to.
Right, like Kinsey's research where he stimulated them and they contorted and cried and blah, but he's like, no, the orgasm. Wow, so children have relentless orgasms. Wow, they're able to and they love it. But no, this person now says, well, it's, just our science says that, wow, now it's not right. So now we're just abused, but now we're saying no to the abuse and somehow going to afterland. After Neverland. Now it's just how we just deal with the trauma and how we just kind of band-aid remedy or just bash hood and just kind of cuddle puddle everyone and just bash, hands off, plug into the VR and just soak in your wetness even though you don't want it. And that gets a standing ovation.
And that hope are why I travel all over talking about this to anyone who will listen. I can see it helping people, even as I say the words. I invite you to say the words. You don't have to say clitoris in front of 1,000 strangers, but do have one brave conversation. Tell this to someone you know who's experienced sexual violence. You definitely know someone. In the US, it's 1 in 3 women, 1 in 6 men, almost half of transgender folks. Say genital response means it's a sex-related stimulus. It doesn't mean it was wanted or liked.
Wow.
Say it to a judge you know, or a lawyer you know, or a cop, or anyone who might sit on a jury in a sexual assault case. Say, some people think that your body doesn't respond if you don't want or like what's happening. If only that were true. Instead, arousal non-concordance. Say this to the confused teenager.
Right, arousal non-concordance. Now that's apparently gonna smash everything. So just because I say something doesn't mean I actually have to do it. Or just because I do something doesn't mean I actually wanted to do it. Is that what you're saying?
In your life who's just trying to figure out what. Say, if you bite is moldy fruit and your mouth waters, nobody would say to you, well, you just don't want to admit how much you like it. Same goes for down below, arousal malconcordance.
Same
Say
goes for down below. Man, as above, so below. Man, we are the balance. We are Middle Earth. Man, this and that and that and that and this and this and this and that. What is going on? The wizard is telling you. So I hope you're paying attention.
to your partner.
Look.
My genitals do not tell you what I want or like. I do.
Oh, yo! Applause! Applause! And the crowd
roots of this
goes
myth are deep, and they are
wild.
entangled with some
My genitals don't tell you what I want. I do. So is that what children are told every time they're being abused? They're like, what's happening to you isn't actually what's happening to you. What I say is happening to you is what is. Right, this person boasts in abuse.
very dark forces in our culture, but with every brave conversation we have, we make the world that little bit better, a little simpler for the confused teenager.
So when a female is telling you, oh yeah, give it to me and this and that and this and this, you know exactly. She could be saying this and it means nothing. Or I love you and exactly. Just because she's saying it doesn't mean it's true. And they're like, well, of course, it's called deceiving, lying. So now she's saying you can deceive with your flesh. So what is going on? She's like, oh, of course, arousal and concordance. Right? Making you think that somehow your consent is separate than your flesh. Somehow your flesh is just, what is going on? So what are you consenting your flesh to be in, supposedly, right? Do you say yes to life and no to death and this? What is going on? Just some bash, reference of comfort is what you have that you think you're controlling. No, you're abusing the flesh. All while convincing you that you have control over situations of your supposed, sexual liberation and this and that. All the while, and all of a sudden you're like, well, I do kind of regret having sex with those people. I didn't really like them or this or that. But it's all good, whatever. Or like, wow, I really wanted that person, but no, it didn't work out. Whoa, sad, so sad. So what's going on, right? Associated with pain and suffering and all this stuff. So if you're in a sexual situation, right, in your free love of liberation, and you say, no, I don't want this, and the person's like, okay, and it stops. And then another time you say yes to it, and then you do go through it, and you're like, well, it wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what I thought it was, and this and that. So the trauma, what is the trauma? Violation. Infringing on your apparent consent, or whatever that means, right? Against your will. So what is against your will in life? Exactly, your bash split net notion of awoken state. There's no certainty in you. So therefore you're easily swayed left and right, bashed up and down, who knows, by anything that just bashes you out of your apparent alignment and control of your apparent will, because you're just smashing as you willed. So as long as it doesn't go according to you will, it doesn't matter the situation, it's what you say it is. So everyone just go out there and keep believing in your bash relative truth and boasting in it no matter what. And this and that and this and this. So instead, this person is saying, no, you got to educate and preach and just go out there and just tell somebody and they'll tell somebody and just spread. That just because my genitals might say yes, I say what happens. Still living by the worship of seduction, lust, pleasures, blah, 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 flick that bean, blah, 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 as long as there's consent and this. Wow. You forgot. You forgot what becoming one flesh is. The wisdom in it. All to just bash and create some codes of ethics and rules of the game and just based on science. Amazing. We'll end it there.